everybody. Welcome to Real Estate Raw and Uncut, episode 42. I'm Byron Lazine, as always, joined by Tim Bray. This is the show if you're a real estate agent, buyer, seller, broker, attorney, lender. You want to check in every single Friday, whether it be on Facebook or on YouTube. We are like back in the saddle right now, just you and I. The last couple weeks we've had guests. We had Keith on episode 40. If you're an agent, check out episode 40 and propertypacket.com. There's some cool things coming very soon there.
Our peeps from
and then
New
Lake Winnipesaukee, man.
You said it. You actually got it down.
Yeah, I got. Well, now
that was for you, Ashley.
They did Cartman. They drilled it into my head so much that I'll never forget Lake Winnipesaukee. So you can check out episode 41 if you want to see what that's all about. But today, Tim came in this morning. He said, "Let's go deep. Let's see what
Doesn't happen very often.
Let's see what we can drum up on more of a analytical approach, I guess you would say, to what's happening with the market and the interest rates. And people would always assume that the Fed controls the interest rate,
and they do to an extent.
Absolutely, but we've seen a tick in interest rates if you're going to borrow money for a mortgage right now. And has that come from the Fed?
No. In fact, no, the Fed has done nothing. So the big question is, what happened? Why are the interest rates up?
Because last year they sat between 3.5 to 3 7/8, somewhere in there.
And we're at 4 1/8, 4 1/4 right now. 0 points. So the thing is, the one thing that has changed, and if you look yesterday, we did have a huge sell-off. I think it was $13 billion in the bond market. So we're going to come back and look globally at this thing and say, what's happening to the bond market, and is there a correlation between the bond market and interest rates? And there definitely is. So, and we can talk about inflation as well.
Let's not go too crazy.
All right, so let's just talk about the bonds being tied to.
I'm not that smart of a guy, so you got to break this down really easy for me.
So basically, there's an inverse relationship between the bond yields and the price of the bonds. So if bonds are cheaper,
yep,
then they want a higher yield.
Right. So
that's tied to inflation as well, and we could go into and just tell me to shut up.
Shut up.
Okay, there we go. Anyway, there are some countries out there that are trying to inflation's a good thing, like Japan.
Right.
So by lowering their interest rates, this thing becomes a cyclical problem where by creating inflation, they're actually causing and lowering the interest rates, they're actually ultimately causing interest rates to rise. Right. So, which is adversely impacting the economy globally.
Right.
So,
because if you break that down to that, how's that going to affect that little first-time home buyer that's right now
and you won't feel like it immediately.
Maybe not locked into their rate.
But I think the impact, even more from an investment standpoint, one thing to think about is that real estate is, the great thing about real estate is that it's leverage.
Right.
You have the ability to borrow debt to get an asset that is producing a revenue stream, potentially, on the investment side.
Right.
So you're hedging your bet, and you're listening to what the Fed's saying, hey, we're not going to be raising interest rates very much, and all of a sudden the interest rates rise. So what happens is, if you're, and I'm just going to use the example of the bonds being at 2.5 6 months ago, and then going to 3.125, which doesn't seem like much.
That's actually a big increase in percentage.
It's huge, because when you're dealing with our adjustable rate mortgages, HELOCs, commercial real estate, and you've got balloons that are happening between year 3 and 5. And you're expecting the rates to be low, and all of a sudden you have that little deviation when it resets. That's a 40% return,
which is
so now you're looking at your NOI always has to be greater, or your net operating income has to be greater than your mortgage interest rate.
Yeah.
And when those start to meet, everything gets skewed,
right.
And all of a sudden the math doesn't make sense anymore, and that little deviation throws your whole business plan off. So I think coming up in the next 3 years, if we do tick, and the Fed doesn't have anything to do with it, then we're going to have some issues with repayment. Now,
On loans that are already
outstanding, that are going to reset. So what happens? If we've got people out there that all of a sudden don't have the ability to repay these loans, dial back 8 years
2008,
ago, 2007.
Those years ring a bell?
So what happens? You basically, as you know, the economy starts to slide a little bit, the Fed has a couple choices.
Right.
We got to print some money, or we go in default. Greece.
We've been printing money.
Correct.
So
Okay, so now we're talking inflation.
how long can you continue to do that?
So if you continue to print money, then the value, it's a balloon, the value of the dollar gets diluted, which is inflation, right? So the bondholders, they want to get their return and their money back, but they don't want to be paid back with this watered down currency. So the yield has to increase. It's this cyclical effect that I'm seeing that we don't have control of.
So do you think it's happening again where right now, as we sit here in June of 2015, real estate across the country
It's booming.
is booming. It's doing very well. Now, we're the last ones to come back, and we haven't really come back if you're looking locally in Connecticut. But what about the rest of the country? Are we going to experience something similar to 08 timeframe?
Well, here's my issue, and I'm not a doom and gloom guy. Just I like telling it the way it is.
Right.
But the jobs report that we just had, let's put it into perspective. It was really, really good. 280,000 jobs were added in a month. Let's break it down. How many counties are there roughly in the country? Over 3,000, maybe 3,100. Mm-hmm. So start doing the math, and that's roughly 80 jobs per county were added. 80. That's it.
Yeah.
That's not a big number.
It's not.
Right? So you start breaking down, well, how many, so 80,000, how many people can you fit in Foxborough?
I don't know, but Giant Stadium, probably.
How many in Giants?
I would say it's probably 80, somewhere around there.
All right,
Foxborough 80, somewhere in there.
70, 80.
70, yeah.
So it takes 4 games of a full stadium.
I wonder what that is. I'm going to look that up.
Those are the jobs that we created in the country, which to me isn't a huge number. Or roughly 1,000 jobs per year in each county, which again, and now dial this in. What are the jobs?
80,242 at Giant Stadium.
What are the qualifications of the people that are getting these
Meadowlands,
jobs?
baby.
You're just saying they're jobs. Are you flipping burgers?
Yeah.
Are they
Right.
part-time?
What are they?
What are these jobs?
Yeah.
So I really like to delve into the numbers and break it down, and my hat goes off to Bob Ruth because he breaks the numbers down like this, and we have conversations going while we're in the car.
Heaven forbid we say we're Bob Ruth,
I can't say where you're from, Bob Ruth, because you lose your job. But I appreciate it.
These big corporations in 2015 have got to wake up and smell the coffee and beans.
They do. But anyway, it's just to give transparency to the marketplace. I think we can't just look at these numbers that are getting thrust in front of us with a pretty picture painted around them saying, hey, 280,000 jobs were added. When out of the 80, 10 of them were prostitutes. I'll stop there.
Hey, we added one of the 80 here in this county, so that's a good thing. But now I want to kind of circle it back into layman terms. If I'm just a home buyer and I'm just looking to buy my first home,
great.
Rates are still great, right? But if, say they were 3 7/8 last year or the beginning of this year, and now they're at 4 1/4,
still very darn cheap.
it's very darn cheap.
Low.
But will that affect the type of home you can buy? Because we do have a lot of buyers and sellers watching.
Well, yeah, as interest rates go up, the values come down.
The values of the homes have to come down.
They have to come down. But it's slow. Real estate gets impacted over time.
Yeah.
So it's not an immediate thing. That takes 6 months to
Right.
a year. So you do see that take place.
Because over the next 6 months, what happens? Those buyers, because they can't afford as much on their mortgage payment, everything's driven off of what they can afford per month. So now they have to dip down and buy in the next bracket down. So those people that are listed above that bracket aren't getting the offers. So now they have to, over that 6 month time frame, come down.
Ripple effect.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at right now, and I hope things change, and I hope things get better. And, globally, we're looking at things with Greece right now and Japan that are taking place, and we'll keep a focus on that. But locally, I think the next big thing that we as real estate professionals have to look at are the changes that are going to be taking place in the closings and the HUD. Maybe we have Bob come in and talk about that, because that is going to affect the entire industry.
If he can, because if he comes in and I can't put that video up, there's going to be big problems.
We'll get her done.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you've got questions specific to your market or any market or any real estate topic, hit us up. Hit us up on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever you're watching us. Drop us some comments. We hope you guys are doing well. Have a great weekend. Find me on Instagram, @ByronLazine.
Peace.
Take care.